Well, g'day and welcome back to Reality Check after a bit of a short absence. I'm your host, Ross Coulthart, and here to guide me through this week's Q&A is my colleague, producer, Meagan Ourada. How are you, Meagan?
Ross, I'm fantastic. It's great to see you.
It's good to be back. I know there's been concern from some of our viewers that I might have been abducted by certain types from Zeta Reticuli or abducted into some dark, deep dungeon somewhere in Area 51, but the real explanation is quite different.
Okay, well, we will start right there because your fan Carl did reach out to us and he was concerned. And we did reach out to him and say that you were okay. But here's what he wrote us. He said, "Hello, reality check. Is Ross alive or has he been silenced for actually investigating this topic and providing us with the facts and evidence? I'm asking because I look forward to the weekly uploads, mainly on the weekend. We get the big videos. And imagine my horror when Saturday and Sunday passed with no new uploads, not even a Q&A video. So where is
Well,
Ross and when are we getting new videos?"
I'm pleased to announce that I am not in the deepest, darkest dungeon of the national security state for telling the dark secrets of UAPs. I've been at Contact in the Desert at Indian Wells near Palm Springs in California, where it was an absolutely delightful, sultry 28 degrees. And as George Knapp describes, you really do get a sirocco wind that comes through in the early morning. It's quite spooky when it comes through. But I've just got back to Australia. I've been sitting on a plane for 15 hours and then another 2 hours driving, and I'm back in the countryside of country New South Wales, and it's a frosty, chilly, wintry morning. It couldn't be more opposite, but we had a great time at Contact in the Desert. It was a very interesting experience, and it was wonderful to meet so many fans of Reality Check and our NewsNation coverage. I can honestly say how gratifying it was to be there and have so many kind, lovely people walking up to shake my hand and to say thank you. I don't think I've ever had so many photographs taken in my life with me. My head is as big as a bus.
That's awesome. I'm glad you had fun. We definitely missed you, but I just want to clarify when you say 28 degrees, you mean Celsius, correct?
Oh yes, of course, that's right. You Americans go with Fahrenheit, don't you? I don't know what
There
that
it
would
is.
be actually, and got no idea. I mean, that's the thing. I've always loved that Saturday Night Live spoof when they have George Washington describing why the Americans were going to go imperial. There's absolutely no logic to why America went imperial. Anyway, moving on.
Anyways, yes, let's move on. I would love to get your reaction to a recent interview that AARO director John Kosklowski just did. He basically, in this interview, acknowledged that UAP may be a non-human intelligence. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, look, it wasn't a huge concession from John. I'm hearing really good things, by the way, about John Kozlowski, and it was great to see him sticking his head up on ABC. Frankly, though, we would love to have him on NewsNation, and I think it'd be great to get him on Reality Check at some stage. A lot of people, including some people in Arrow who work with John, tell me that he's a great boss and that he's determined to try and do the right thing. But as James Fox revealed recently, John can't even part his hair without getting the permission from the Pentagon. There's a huge restraint on what the Arrow boss, that's the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office boss, can do to investigate and reveal what he's investigating about UFOs in the Pentagon. And I'm assured that they actually don't have the security clearances to get access to the deepest, darkest secrets of the legacy program, which frankly explains why Dr. Kozlowski said that he had no evidence at this stage to support any allegations of a extraterrestrial or NHI engagement with this planet. The simple fact is nobody's telling him, and he's not cleared to do so. What Arrow needs is teeth. It needs resources, powers, legal powers to actually kick the door in and find out where that spacecraft is buried in a cave in Area 51. And frankly, you've got a situation where the fox is in charge of the henhouse. Whilst I don't doubt the good motives of Dr. Kozlowski, as distinct from Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who was a bit of a lickspittle for the cover-up, I do detect from Kozlowski that there is a willingness to actually at least concede there might be something there. And he did come part of the way in that interview, but I'd like to see him come a lot further.
All right, a lot of people agree with you, Ross. I want to move to a NewsNation exclusive now. Our reporter, Libby Dean, she got to talk with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and she asked him if a foreign adversary was behind the drone activity over New Jersey last October. His response was, with complete clarity, I don't know. Let's listen to a little bit of what he said.
But during those 3 or 4 days, when people were seeing drones and it wasn't a big national news story, we don't know what it was.
Ross, what do you think about that?
Okay, Meagan. Well, it's funny. Before I went to the United States, I would have said categorically that I have no idea about the findings and the assertions made by the Transportation Secretary. But I learned a few things while I was over there. Firstly, it's very significant that the Transportation Secretary, the guy who's in charge of all transport in the United States, is basically saying he doesn't know. And that's significant because, frankly, there are a number of agencies that are under his control that ought properly to be briefed into what the White House asserts, which is that this was all part, these drone so-called incursions were all part of some FAA authorized research project and other reasons. Frankly, it doesn't wash, and there's a big stink over it, and it's tempting to say it's all UFOs and the government's trying to cover it up. I do believe some of it was anomalous, and I have a hunch that the United States was putting up technology that it hasn't yet disclosed it's got. There was a certain name given to me. I'm not sure if this is a code name, but somebody mentioned to me, and this didn't come, by the way, at Contact in the Desert. It came from somewhere else. It's got star in it, and I'm not sure if it's dark star, but the suggestion is that there is some national defense program that involves these SUV-sized objects. I'm not going to call them drones, that were being put up. And the explanation might be that what a lot of people have been seeing are the objects that the government's been putting up in an attempt to cloud the picture as to what's really flying over the east coast of the United States and over certain sensitive military bases and over the United Kingdom and over parts of Germany, particularly a naval base. There are still ongoing incursions by unknown objects, some of them doing allegedly anomalous things, some of them changing shape, or at least that's the account given to me by people. I recently spoke to a guy who told me that he was in Oklahoma and he was seeing a takeoff and landing point in a field near Oklahoma City where he saw what looked like a very coordinated, apparently government or some kind of official operation on private land. When he got close, he was chased away by drones and he was terrified. I haven't actually heard back from him since we had our preliminary conversation. And sir, if you are still interested in engaging, I'd like to hear more. I do think there is something going on, that there is an active government operation. I was given a code name that had the name Star in it. It might have been Dark Star. My source wasn't 100% sure. And I don't know any more than that. I do believe that some of these objects are anomalous, and I do think that the White House is being evasive and, how does one say this politely, economical with the truth when it says this was FAA authorized. How could the Transportation Secretary not know about something that was supposedly FAA authorized? We're being lied to, general public. We are being gaslit by the White House and we're being concealed. Something is being concealed from us. Quite why? Look, I'd like to think the best of government. I really would. We've lived for years in the hope and expectation that the reason why government keeps things secret is for good reasons. I'm increasingly persuaded that the reason why government's keeping the story of what these incursions were and are over New Jersey and much of the United States secret is actually for a lesser reason, which is to cover their butts. So more to come on this. I'm doing some very rigorous investigation right now, but I do believe there is some kind of state-sponsored operation underway involving some kind of technology that may not be what you and I would call conventional drones. They don't have visible propulsion systems. But what they are doing is confusing the picture. And maybe, just maybe, that's what government wants to do.
All right, Russ, that's very interesting. I'm going to move to a very pointed question from Colin. He says, Ross, in a recent interview, you said people have told you we're on borrowed time. Something happens in 2027. Will you hold yourself accountable for sitting on information that could have maybe prepared people? Good luck.
If I knew what it was, for sure, I promise you I would tell you. We try and be transparent here on Reality Check. The simple fact is, I don't know. All I have said in an interview is that somebody asked me, I think it was an Australian guy, Reese, who asked me, what about this date, 2027? Do you think there's anything to it? And I've said, yes, people are telling me that something is going on in 2027. And there's been a lot of people making the express assertion that I am saying that something is going on in 2027. I don't know for sure, and I don't know what it is. Like you, I'm only ever as good as the sources that I speak to, and I've said this repeatedly, including in a speech I gave at Contact in the Desert. I am not some oracle on high who is able to divine the intimate secrets of the national security state. If I knew for sure, for example, if there was some kind of pending catastrophe in 2027 or 2034, which is another date some people speak about, I would say for sure. I don't know. I really, truly don't know for sure. And frankly, it frustrates me that at times people get overly excited when they think that I know a lot of stuff and I'm somehow hiding it from you all. I promise you, when I know something for sure and there's not a good national security reason to keep it secret, I will reveal it. But I'm not hiding something for national security reasons on this 2027 date. I simply don't know.
Okay, Russ, let's move to a question on our Greenland episode that we just posted this week with some exclusive UAP video that was given to you. Hi, Russ. You really think that who has done investigations of the phenomena since the early 1950s just happened to be in Greenland is a coincidence? A remote place where the government does not ask any questions, a UFO hotspot with enormous deposits of rare earth minerals. It's not just microchip production and weapons that need these minerals. Wink, wink. Let me know what you think, Daniel.
Well, Daniel, that's exactly why we made the story. I'm like you. I am fascinated by the synchronicities of the Battelle Memorial Institute, for example, and I've since been told other notable contractors, including certain prominent aerospace companies that I know are involved in the Legacy program, being involved in operations at the airbase in Greenland, and also there's this separate institution, this research institution run by Battelle on a different location in Greenland. I do think it's significant. That's precisely why we did the story. It does seem a bit cozy that the national security state of the United States is so focused on Greenland. And our interviewee, Martin Kleist, who's a wonderful guy who's part of Greenland extraction, he told us that he thinks the main reason why the United States is interested in this particular location is because Greenland's right next to parts of the Arctic Sea that are increasingly traversable by Russian ships. And so it's becoming a Cold War issue as things heat up between the United States and Russia. We do need to monitor that part of the world. But it is interesting, isn't it, that what the Pilibut station is now monitoring in Greenland is actually up there. They're monitoring for incoming evidence of ballistic missiles, particularly, of course, from the Russians. But you can guarantee that the kind of radar technology that they've got at that site, at what used to be known as the Thule Air Base, that radar technology would be pretty damn good radar tech. And if there are objects moving around in that part of Greenland, it would certainly be a great place to observe them. And also, as I've learned here in Australia, I strongly suspect there's been testing by the United States in certain remote parts of Australia, particularly the Northwest Cape area, going right out to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean and in a triangle with Guam right up in Micronesia. There's a very empty triangle there, Diego Garcia, Guam, Northwest Cape, Australia, where you could fly anything and pretty well go undetected. And similarly with Greenland. I mean, if you were wanting to test technology, and it's a delicious coincidence that Patel Memorial Institute is one of the peoples there, because of course they're the body that was involved allegedly in researching and investigating the retrieved parts of the Roswell crash in 1947. They go back time immemorial, the last 80 years, investigating UAPs. So yes, Daniel, I completely agree with you.
And Ross, we did reach out to Patel and we have not heard back from a statement from them.
Surprise, surprise.
Yep. All right, we will go to our next question from our viewer, Tom. He says, "Hello, Ross. The interview with Jake Barber changed everything about what I thought we knew, not only about disclosure regarding ET craft, but also the confirmation that human psychic ability is real and universal. The acknowledgement of psionics seems almost more groundbreaking to me than ETs. Is it possible that some psionically gifted people could accidentally use their abilities without realizing it? Thank you for your incredible journalism."
Thank you so much for your kind words. It really does truly mean a lot. What I can tell you is, yes, I do think that psionics is probably a more important issue for humanity than the simple fact of the existence of a non-human intelligence, because I think the potential for human beings to be able to use these psionic abilities explains a lot about why perhaps a non-human intelligence is interested in us. It also goes further than that. I mean, as I will expound in a speech that you'll soon see from my Contact in the Desert experience, I do increasingly think that the key issue isn't just whether or not there's retrieved non-human technology. I think the key issue is, yeah, sure, of course there's non-human intelligence and non-human technology. The big issue is, why are they interested in us? And I think humans actually have abilities that we haven't realized we've got. And I suspect that the scientific hypotheses, the theories about the pineal gland and the fact that it might in fact be able to communicate non-locally with a larger uber consciousness and non-local consciousness. This is really exciting stuff, and to me it goes a long way to explaining not just the phenomenon of alleged psychic abilities, telepathic abilities, or so-called psionic abilities. It also explains things like remote viewing, and it might even, if you think about it, explain life after death, whether or not the human soul transcends the physical meat bodies that we have. I increasingly find myself getting quite spiritual in the conversations that I'm having with people who are relating their own experiences or knowledge of contact with alleged non-human intelligences. I met a lot of them at Contact in the Desert, and I don't know. I truly don't know for sure, and I'm not stating anything with certainty. What I'm trying to do is take you, the viewer, with me on this investigative journey, because I'm kind of doing it. We call it, in my line of work, bullshit on the run. As we go along, we try and analyze and understand what we're doing, and sometimes we get it wrong. I mean, if you'd asked me 70 years ago, when I first started out investigating this story, that I was going to be talking about human consciousness being fundamental to an understanding of ET's NHI, I would have scoffed. I would have laughed at you. But increasingly, I'm drawn to the fact that there is clearly something about human psionic abilities, and I think they're real, I do, that are intriguing and important to the question of a non-human intelligence. It explains why they're engaging with us. They might, in fact, some of them, be us from the future. And the question also asked, is it possible that people might inadvertently use their psionic abilities without realizing it? Oh, yes. I've actually spoken to people who've had this happen. And if you think about it, what is human intuition? This is another thing that I'm developing in a speech that I gave at Contact in the Desert. Human intuition, that weird feeling that you have where you know something's going to happen, a prognostication, a foresight, an insight, it's chilling. Is it possible that we do have innate abilities and that there are ways that we can learn of enhancing and sharpening those abilities, and that some amongst us have highly enhanced abilities, i.e. the true psionics? This is what's fascinating to me. And yes, you're absolutely right. I do think that there is a probability, or a possibility at least, that humans have these innate abilities, and that to some degree our over-technologized society has removed that incredible spiritual side of humans that allows us to connect more with that potential other realm. And as I say this, I can hear the splenetic debunkers ranting, winding up their computers to get ready for a splenetic outrage. I don't care. All we're doing is investigating. If you don't like hearing this, by the way, if all you want to do is come in and debunk, go away. We're not interested. What we're interested in is an open public discussion. We're not always going to get it right, but what we are interested in doing is having a discussion about this, because I think for too long these issues have been suppressed by mainstream materialist science. It doesn't explain everything in the universe. The reductionist ideas of the scientific method can't explain what so many people are saying are real. And it's not to dismiss the need for empirical evidence. It's to open our minds to the possibility that there may be other ways of proving and verifying what is truly real.
All right, let's move to our next question from Roger. He says, "Hi, Ross and Meagan. I love your work so much. Ross, your artistry of descriptive English language is truly impressive. Rip snorter isn't something I've heard since high school in the early 90s. That's just gold." Question.
That's very kind.
There's been a lot of comments about your rip snorter phrase. A lot.
I love the English language. And one of the joys about being online, I'm not quite sure what the FCC laws are about whether I'm allowed to swear, but Megan's always telling me off if I use profanities, and she generally bleeps me out. So I've decided to be more colourful with some of my more vitriolic and robust language that isn't known to be a swear word. Lickspittle's another one of my favourites. I'll be using and deploying a few. Some friends of mine have told me they've got drinking games for whenever certain words of mine come up. They're meant to scull a beer, which of course is reckless drinking of alcohol is not something that I would ever encourage. I do appreciate your kind words, though, and I'm glad it provides you with some amusement.
Good. Well, thank you for making my job easier. I'll get to Roger's question now. He says, "I'm going glamping with my wife in the Hunter Valley this weekend, where I believe there have been several reports of UAP. Sitting by the campfire looking up at the stars, what could we do other than voice of intentions of love and welcoming to potentially invite UAP to our visibility? Please keep up the amazing work you and your team are doing. You guys rock."
That's very kind of you. Okay. Fundamentally important. If you're sitting beside that campfire and you see something in the sky that you think may be anomalous, don't just take a video of it on your mobile phone and use that blurry image to assert that you've seen something anomalous. There's two great apps I'm aware of. One is Phenom, Phenom. You'll find it on the apps menu for most types of mobile phone, and it's made by a friend of mine, Lenville Logan, who used to work on the UAP task force, and he's done some great work. If you film one of these objects with that app, it will try to calculate altitude, latitude, longitude. It'll take data and put it into a database which is publicly available. And this is so important because if there are other people in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales, beautiful part of the world, by the way, great wine, lovely clear skies. But if you do see it and somebody else sees it, they can triangulate. And if you've got, say, 3 people, you can actually get an idea of movement for how quickly it moves across the sky. This is really important because I've come back from the United States and I just groaned when I opened my emails this morning. There's tens of thousands of new emails and many of them are blurry inconsequential videos, and I don't like being rude to people. But please, when you see objects like this, don't just use your camera video, which is hopeless for taking data. At least use one of these apps. Another one is Enigma Labs, which is a slightly secretive outfit in New York, who are allegedly keen to collate data for the purposes of UFO analysis, and they've got an app as well. So take your pick. Phenom's my favorite, but basically use one of those apps. That way other people can add data and you can cross-reference and share data on when this sighting happened. I get stuff all the time, not just from Australia, from all over the world. And I plead with people, please think about using these apps. They're so important. It's an absolutely essential way of being able to get verifiable data.
All right, Ross, thank you. Let's do one more for today. I think this is an important news story. Christian emailed us about this. He says, "Hi, Ross and Meagan. I was extremely pleased to learn from NewsNation that David Grusch has taken the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office to court for unlawful release of his medical information to an Intercept reporter designed to discredit him." Ross, what is your take on the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office statement that they followed the law in their defense of this leak of the slimy journalist who tried to ensure that Grusch would be denigrated and discredited? I realize that Grusch has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes since 2023, but we have heard precious little directly from him, e.g. the much anticipated op-ed that never materialized. Can we expect to hear more from Grusch in the future, perhaps in a follow-up interview by you?
Well, certainly David's not lying idle. As you probably all know, he's working for Representative Eric Burleson, who's a member of Congress and who is one of the members of the UAP caucus pushing for UAP transparency. And I can tell you that David is working very aggressively behind the scenes, and I've been involved with him frequently, many times, talking and updating about potential witnesses who are willing to come forward, new evidence. He's very actively involved in trying to encourage the new Trump administration to get more interested in the UAP subject. On the subject of the lawsuit that he's taking against the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, it's not a lay-down win at all. I don't think he's absolutely guaranteed to win. I think he's got a reasonable chance of success. A lot boils down to whether the police argument that these are just police records and not medical records is true. So the argument, if it's accepted that these are medical records, which I do think they are, they're very intimate details of a moment in David's life, which he didn't conceal, by the way. I want to emphasize this. A lot was made in the original article that was written by a particular journalist who was, I think, used. I think it's unfair to attack the journalist. He was a young, impetuous fella. He was given an opportunity to break what he thought was a big story and told where to look. And I do have a suspicion that there was a bit of a nudge given by the CIA or somebody to ensure that these records were made public. And they were obtained on FOI. There's no criticisms to be made of the journalist for basically securing these records under FOI. What is to be criticised is the decision that was made by the Sheriff's Office to not look at those records and go, well, this is really sensitive stuff. Because David had lost a friend who he'd known in Afghanistan. That friend had died in terribly tragic circumstances, and he was bereft, as any of us would be. And he volunteered this to me when we did the interview in June of 2023. He knew that there might be some kind of dirt campaign mounted against him, so he did entirely the right thing and volunteered it to me and said, look, you should know about this. And so what happened was David was admitted into a mental health facility because he basically had a breakdown after losing one of his best friends. Horrible, horrible tragedy. I think that's a sensitive medical record. And so do David's lawyers, and that's the argument that they're making. The police department, of course, is arguing that these are police records, and if anything, they had an obligation to release them. It's a very important issue for FOI because it's never been made clear before whether the Sheriff's Office can make this claim that because there are intimate medical details inside a police report, they somehow don't have to apply an exemption that applies under Virginia law. Specifically, the Virginia Code says that recordings, reports, records, documents related to commitment hearings for involuntary admission shall not be subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. That's pretty clear. And additionally, Virginia FOI law exempts health records, particularly those related to involuntary admissions, to protect the release of sensitive personal information. Now, what happened? David's sensitive personal information was revealed. It did cause him tangible damage. This was an attempt by, I suspect, people in the intelligence community who told this journalist where to look to try and damage David's credibility by suggesting that he was mentally ill and therefore couldn't be trusted. There are few more damaging assertions. This is of the vein of the way that say, for example, the Pentagon Papers whistleblower was smeared when the Watergate burglars tried to break into his psychiatrist's office to procure his sensitive medical records. This is how dirty the national security state gets. They told the journalist in this case where to look, and that was a really inappropriate and bad thing to do, and maybe the journalists should have been more discriminating, knowing that they were being manipulated by the national security state in what was essentially a hit job. So it's going to be very interesting. I don't think it's a lay-down win for David, but I think he's got a very good chance of success.
All right, Ross, thank you. That is all for today.
Thank you so much. And if you've got any other questions, we do try and answer your questions, but there's a huge number of them. It's realitycheck@newsnationnow.com. Lovely to talk to you all. Thanks very much, Meagan.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.